Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we are updating my reading journal with the books I read in December, and I can tell you how excited I am to finally start working on my new reading journal in January. I can't believe 2025 is over and 2026 is already here, but that means a reading journal flip through is coming next week. And also, the initial setup of my 2026 reading journal is already up on my channel if you want to check it out. So for December, I wanted to make a cozy and slightly vintage cover spread with a Christmas theme, and for that I decided to use these stickers from Runa Maruti. These are from her Patreon. And of course, to complement all this vintage Christmas vibe, I used this beige grid paper with gold details. Sometimes I keep the backing paper of the stickers if I see myself using it in the future, and this was one of those. I really like the subtle holly designs and the snowflakes in this muted orangey color, so I'm going to rip a few parts and use it in the cover page. I don't do a lot of Christmas themes in neither of my journals, even though I love Christmas, but that's just because I always have a different theme in mind for December. But this time I really liked these warm colors without them screaming Christmas. It's much more of a muted color palette, and I really love the vintage vibe. For the window, I didn't have one on the sticker sheet, but I really wanted to create a scene, maybe a living room with a fireplace and the presents on the floor, so I thought a window would look very nice. But the one I chose first was a little too dark academia to match with the theme, so I used another one, which fits this theme much better. Then I thought of doing a night sky on the window, but I didn't have a washi or a PET tape with the colors I had in mind, and I also didn't want to color in. So I used this transparent gold constellations washi tape. It's very old, it's one of my first washi tapes and it's still beautiful, to create this background. Then I just built the scene with a few more stickers, and I used a PET tape from the washi tape shop to complement the theme. I forgot to mention, but since this is the last month in the 2025 reading journal, I'm also choosing my book of the year in two different ways. First, the book bracket I did in the initial setup of my A5 journal, so the one I used from January to September, and a book matrix that I did in this one, because I wanted to test out if the results would be the same using different methods. And I'm also doing my reading statistics for the entire year, so if you are curious about that, stick around until the end. The cover spread is done, so we are moving on to the books I read. This is a spread that I added recently to the reading journal, and I really like it, so I'm still going to use it in 2026. For this one, I decorated all around the spread using the same papers and also the rest of the stickers on the sticker sheet. So now let me tell you what books I actually read this month. I started with God of Ruin by Rina Kent, the fourth book of the Legacy of God series, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read the following book, which is God of Fury, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Then I read a Christmas novella called Krampus Kruk by Serena Pierre, which I gave 4 stars. And finally, I read Captivate Me by Harmony West, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Now for the mangas/manhwas, I read The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or Dao Zu Shi, the volume 2 of the comic series. Then I read The Position Has Changed, Blessings to the Outcasts, Torn from the Stem, or Even the Trash Was Once New. I'm not sure which one is the actual title. Then we have Lessons for the Arrogant Brother, and no, they are not brothers. And last but not least, So Who's on Top? These don't have any ratings for now, but I made a new rating system for mangas or manhwas, things like that. So in 2026 I will start rating these, but for the sake of consistency I didn't want to start doing it in December. This month was quite a journey. I had many things to do, but I squeezed in some books during my trip to Prague, which helped a lot. For some reason I put God of Wrath instead of God of Fury on the page, but I fixed it. And now we can continue on to the first book review, which is for God of Ruin. As I said before, this is the fourth book of the series, but it can be read as a complete standalone. This book is about Lennon King, Brandon's evil twin, and Mia Sokolov, Nikolai's sister. Brandon and Nico are the main couple of the next book. So, Landon is the king of scamming, just for the fun of it. He messes around with everyone and he can be bothered by the consequences. But before we talk about that, let me give you an overall explanation of the series. This series takes place in North Brighton, and there are two popular rival universities, the King's U and the Royal Elite University. The King's U is funded by powerful people whose pockets are filled with new money, so mostly Americans, and the other college, the Royal Elite University, is British, loaded with old money and pretentious aristocracy. Landon goes to the Royal Elite and Mia goes to the King's U, and there are two rival gangs from each university. Lennon belongs to one, and Nikolai, Mia's brother, belongs to another. And I'm saying this because all the plot starts because of something that Lennon did to Nikolai in the previous book, which is mentioned in this one as well. Mia and Lennon are college rivals, and in the beginning of the book, Mia takes revenge from Lennon for what he did to her brother Nikolai. But instead of being mad, Lennon is intrigued and decides she is the new addition to his chess game. But things don't go his way, and this game starts to get a lot more interesting. Because Mia may look like a princess, but on the inside, she's the most badass of all the girls. I really liked their relationship, the cat and mouse game, and I was so surprised because if you read the books in order, you may dislike or even hate Landon, but on his own book, he's so much fun, and I even felt sympathy for him, which made me hate Nikolai, which I already forgave him, but in that time it really pissed me off. Mia is adorable, she's mute, but that doesn't mean she can't do the things she wants, and she does it anyway. I started with hating Maya, Mia's and Nikolai's sister, then I started to actually like her, and then in the end I hated her even more. Then the plot twist was one I did not see coming, which I always appreciate. And now that I laid the ground for you, we can talk about the next book of the series, God of Fury. This is an MM romance between Brandon and Nikolai. As their respective brother and sister, they go to different universities, and Nikolai belongs to the King's U gang. He's the most violent, notorious bastard, and a mafia heir. So, of course, Brandon, the quiet artist, golden boy, and Lennon's twin brother, which is the top enemy of Nikolai, is not very interested in getting close to Nico. But that plan goes awry when Nico decides that he wants to break Brandon's control and limits. Their relationship was the most fun of all the books so far. It has 600 pages, but I read it very fast. And since in all the previous books, Nico was painted as a war machine, punch first, ask questions later type of person, you don't expect him to be the most loving person ever. He's a golden retriever behind all those tattoos, and don't even begin talking about it because I was so touched by that. If you know, you know, and I was so happy. Also, Brandon is a very tough case to crack, but Nikolai manages to do that, and oh my god, the banter between them is so good. My favorite book is God of Wrath because I really loved Jeremy and Cicely, but God of Fury is right there with them. It's really, really good. This book isn't as dark as the other ones, but it still has some dark themes, so please, on this one specifically, read the content warnings first, because it gets really sad. And one of the things I really liked about this one is the mentions that it has about SA. It doesn't happen always to girls, boys are also victims, and it really portrays that realistically, at least in my opinion. Again, the connection between them is the light of the day, it's really beautiful, and I really liked Nikolai, even though he pissed me off in God of Ruin and in some scenes on this one, but he made up for that. I'm currently reading the last book, which is God of War, so I'm finishing this series for sure in January, and let's see what I think of that one. Now let's move on to the only Christmassy book that I read this month, Krampus Kruk. Honestly, I was supposed to read Good Spirits because everyone was talking about it, but I was craving something a little more dark, not the cutesy Christmas books, so I found this one. This is an age gap dark romance Christmas novella, and it unwraps what happens when you go home with a stranger and discover he's no Santa but the devil of Christmas himself. The story begins when Morgan enters a bar set on drinking to forget. She simply wants to escape her family and disappear for a while, a night where she doesn't need to think about the consequences, and by destiny, a mystery man sits beside her and offers her a night that she won't forget. The kind of distraction she should refuse, but going home sounds like torture and not the sexy kind, so she accepts. I never read an age gap so big. She's 29, I think, and he's 64, if I remember correctly. This is 80% smut and 20% plot, but even though it's short, I think it's pretty well written. I just wish the thing going on with Morgan's family would be explained a little more. And I know it doesn't sound like, but this story is related to the mafia. It's not very deep into that, but it's just a little, just for context. The nicknames bothered me a little, but that's just because it was not my vibe, and besides that, it's a pretty solid novella, but a good one in my opinion. Of course, don't read it expecting it to be a masterpiece, but for a quick read and a little holiday fun, it's great. I tried to make the review spread with a Christmas theme, but I tried to lean more towards the dark color palette, so I used a black glitter washi tape and darker colors on the paper to bring that vibe. I wanted the Christmas to be present, but a little more muted because it fits the book. Honestly, if you read this book in summer, it would be fine because the only mention to Christmas is the day that the story happens, and the nicknames that Morgan gives to Piotr, which is the male main character. And who says that you can read a Christmas book in June and a summer book in December? It's totally up to you. Next, we have a book that gave me mixed feelings, which is Captivate Me. This was the first multiple people POV that I read. It has 4 different points of view: Cassie, Theo, Noelle, and Beau. This is probably going to sound a little confusing, but stay with me. Cassie and Noelle are best friends in college. Theo is Noelle's boyfriend, and Beau is the security guard on campus, so it doesn't have any connection to the other characters. It all seems to go as usual until one day Noelle goes missing and no one knows what happened to her. So the friend group starts investigating and searching for her, but what no one knows is that Noelle is currently in Beau's basement, which means he kidnapped her. But the motive is still a mystery. Cassie and the group are getting worried, but while the search happens, Cassie can't hide her feelings for Theo anymore, and even though they know nothing can happen between them until Noelle is found, they can't stay away from each other. So now about what I think. I never liked Cassie. For me, she's a walking red flag from the beginning, and I actually liked Theo. My favorite couple was Noelle and Beau, of course. I really liked their relationship and how they bring each other's good side to the surface. This story is really good because this all happens for a reason and you can't never guess who is behind all this. I had a feeling, but I was never sure of it, and turns out I was right. For me, the plot was the best thing. I didn't connect to the characters. I liked one of the couples, but I never really connected to them as I usually do, like in the Legacy of God series, for example. Even though the story was good, I didn't like the ending. I understand it was the better ending, but for this book I actually would prefer if it was a little more realistic, because some decisions in the end pissed me off, because of the plot twist that I can't say because it would be a major spoiler. I think if it wasn't for Cassie, I would like this story much more, but she's part of the plot, so I can't do anything about it. If you like mysteries, this is a good book, but if you are searching for a good plot and enjoyable characters, read Pen Pal by G.T. Geisinger or Grave Matter by Karina Hill. They were both books that I read this year, and I really liked the setting of each one. Now that the book reviews are done, let's begin the manga/manhwa part of the video. Let's start with Dao Zu Shi, or the Grandmaster of the Money Cultivation. This is part of a collection that I'm buying. The books are quite expensive, so I can only buy one at a time, and I'm collecting it because this is my favorite donghua, which, if you don't know, is kinda like an anime but the Chinese version. I watched first, and then I loved it so much that I decided to invest in the actual books and see what things happened there, because many things were cut for the donghua. This also has a novel version, but I wanted the comics because I really loved the art. I can't say a lot because this is the second volume, but my baby Wen Ning finally appeared, the one on these rectangles, and we are finally getting a glimpse into the past of Wei Wuxian, the main character, which is right on top, and Lan Wanjing, the other MC, which is on the bottom. I would say love interest, but I don't know if something actually happens between them, so until then, I will refer to him as a main character as well. Next, we have the position has changed. Ki Yul, the blonde one, is an actor who is living together with his crush since high school, CEO Moni Young. And he gets caught doing something, and CEO unexpectedly offers to help. Then it has a very big misunderstanding because of that, and we finally know that CEO isn't as oblivious as he seemed. This story was cute. Kyul isn't actually crybaby, and CEO isn't so cold as Yul thinks he is. The story was good enough, not a masterpiece, but it's fine. And also, the story in the end has an amnesia plot, which I'm not a fan of, but oh well. If I had to rank it, this would be a solid 3.5 stars, but we'll see my actual rating in 2026 when I use my new rating system for this type of media. I didn't want to use the same decoration I used in a previous manhwa in like October or November, I don't remember. So instead I used these big flower silicone stamps in brown for the background and just put 2 washi tapes to balance things out. And after I put the title on the page, we can move on to the next one, that is a manga. This one is called Blessings to the Outcasts. It has the original name that I'm not going to pronounce, so for now let's stick with the English name. So this story begins when, in order to save his home village, Jonak, the one with light hair, seeks the help of the dragon god, who is said to grant the wishes of humans. However, Adain, the dragon god, demands Jonak himself in return. Despite being puzzled by Adain's arrogant attitude, which is so unlike the benevolent image painted in legends, Jonak readily agrees to become the dragon's companion. This one had a very unique plot. So basically the whole problem is that these monsters, I don't remember the name, are abducting human females and they are dying. So in order to save the villages from more abductions, Jonah goes basically on a suicide mission to sacrifice himself to the dragon god and make him kill the monsters. It was good, a little confusing from the middle to the end, but overall is a very emotional story and the relationship between them is very raw but beautiful. Next we have the manhwa Even the Trash Was Once New, or the name that appears in the actual pages, which is Torn from the Stem. So, Lieutenant Seo Yua, you guys know I'm not going to pronounce it right, goes undercover to catch a drug cartel, and his first goal is to get close to the boss, Sha Tae-gun. So far, things are going well, but when Tae-gun realizes who he is, he demands that he joins him, and he threatens to kill his entire family if he runs away. And things get even more twisted when Seo realizes that this is not the first time they met, and it was that first encounter that led to this whole mess. If you are looking for romance, this is not it. It's very toxic, it's completely SA at all times, and I only stayed because I was very curious to see the ending, which surprised me in a very good and traumatic way. Moving on, we have Lessons for the Arrogant Brother, and as I said before, no, they are not related by blood. And let me tell you the story. Leon, the son of the Lord, the one with blonde hair, has an inferiority complex towards Byeon Kang-woo, who is his adoptive brother and actually better than him at everything. And as a result, he keeps on bothering him. One day when Yeon tries to provoke Byeon Kang-woo, he himself fell for counter-provocation and ended up in his bed. So it was a confusing plot, but maybe it was because of the translation. Sometimes the people on the story said conflicting things, and it started to get very weird because they eventually started to call each other as brothers, and I get it, it's the whole point, but we know that they aren't related by blood, but they act like it. It was a whole mess, but the art is beautiful at least, and honestly, it was 100% smut. Maybe the plot is confusing because it is non-existent. I guess the only good thing is that the art is the only grace that could save this story, and I could finally use my temple stickers from my sticker book. We are now on the final manhwa of this month, and this one is called So, Who's on Top? The story follows Kang Yo-in, the blonde one, who has been in love with his best friend of 8 years, Jin Ye-gyeon. After years of pinning, Yo-in hatches the perfect plan to finally make Ye-gyeon his boyfriend. But one hazy one-night stand later, that careful plan goes straight off the window and somehow they are suddenly dating. But since Kang Yo-in can't remember anything, the question remains, who was on top? Okay, this one was very funny to me, both characters had such an interesting dynamic and I loved the plot. It was nothing new and it was silly, but I had a very good time reading it. Oh, and this one has the same author as the first manhwa of this month, which is The Position Has Changed. The art is very similar and honestly one of the best I saw until now. It makes the characters look so majestic and the chibi style when they are doing something funny is so cute. For this one, I didn't know how to decorate the page, so I just chose this sky tape that matches the color palette of both characters pretty well. It has the warm orangey tones of Kang Gyo-in, and it has the purpley tones on Jin Ye-gyeon. And to make something different, I used my white letters to make the title. Usually the monthly update would end here and you would see the flip through, but since it's December, I'm going to choose my book of the year and write my statistics. So I did the book matrix off camera and we're going back to it after we choose my book of the year from the book bracket I did in my first reading journal. I already had my titles to go. I tried to choose one from each month, but the ones that didn't have any 5 stars, I changed for a honorable mention. And at the end, I'm changing 2 titles because somehow I put the wrong ones, but they don't change the actual outcome, so it's totally fine. In this one, we have a book for each month, so 12 in total, and the first round it's January against February and so on and so forth, until we get the final 3, which were Hexed by Emily McIntyre, King of Envy by Anna Wang, and Pen Pal by G.T. Geisinger. And the book of the year, which I actually already anticipated, is Pen Pal. This one stuck with me since I read it, and it's so good if you like romance, mystery, and shocking plot twists. So now back to the current reading journal, we are doing the book matrix, and this one is very similar to the bracket, but instead of having just 2 books against each other and never competing with others from the other months, in here they have to compete with all of them, so A against B against C and so on and so forth, so theoretically it should give us a more real result. I'm actually a very decisive person, so when I read a book and it doesn't leave my mind, I already know that this one is probably a potential book of the year. Of course, I can always read a better one, but it's already in the top 3, which is what happened to Pen Pal. I already knew that this was probably my book of the year. But nonetheless, I tried and I really thought about my choices, and in the end, it gave me the same result. But the fun thing about this is that it doesn't only give you the best, it gives you the top 3, top 5, top 10, however many books you have on the list, which is so fun. The actual process is very simple. You just assign each book to a letter, and each one is going to battle against the other. A against B, B against C, C against A, and so on. And then in the end you just have to count how many times each letter appears. The one that appears more times is the winner. And of course sometimes you are going to have the same number on different letters, so it's a tie, but if you want to put them in order like I did, you can just choose the one you like best from those. I really enjoy this process a lot more than the bracket because it really makes you think about each book individually, and if you prefer this one over that one, I think it's very interesting seeing those choices on paper because sometimes when I finish my book review I may have a different opinion, but after I really think about it after a few months, my thoughts may change and I choose more realistically and not just based on emotion. So I had to change the top 12 to top 9 because they didn't fit all on the page and I printed some wrong book covers, but that's an easy cover up. And I actually didn't tell you the books that were on the run in the first place, so here you go. We have Soul of a Witch by Arlie LaRue, Daydream by Hannah Grace, Shatter Me, Destroy Me, and Unravel Me by Tara Mafi, Hexed by Emily McIntyre, The Danger You Know by Lily White, King of Envy by Anna Wang, Pen Pal by G.T. Geisinger, Grave Matter by Karina Hale, and God of Wrath and God of Fury by Rina Kent. And this is the final list, already corrected, and the 2 books I took out of the list were The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie and Gothicana by Ronix. So the actual top 3 changed from the book bracket, and now the top 9 is Pen Pal, Hexed, God of Wrath, God of Fury, King of Envy, Daydream, Shatter Me, Unravel Me, and Grave Matter. I have a few more spreads left on this journal that I'm still thinking about how I'm going to use or if I just leave them empty, and now let's move on to the 2025 statistics. I also set up this spread in my initial setup, so it's all ready to go. Just for context, I'm not counting any mangas and manhwas, these stats are just for books, and I'm using the data from the app Storygraph. So this year I read a total of 40 books, which surpassed my reading goal, which was 35. I read 13,673 pages. My favorite book was Pen Pal, my least favorite was Leave Me Behind, and the longest book was God of Fury by Rina Kent with 624 pages, and the shortest was Fracture Me by Tarna Mafi with 68 pages. I read 100% fiction, and my overall moods from the books I read are from top to bottom: emotional, dark, tense, adventurous, funny, mysterious, and light-hearted. Then for the genres from top to bottom again, we have more than a half of romance, then we have contemporary, fantasy, young adult, and the really tiny slices are for dystopian, erotica, horror, LGBTQI+, thriller, sports, crime, and science fiction. Then for the format, I read many ebooks, a few paperbacks, and just 2 audiobooks. On the bottom we have the books per month, and in November I read 2 books, in January, February, March, May, July, August and September I read 3 books, in April, June and December I read 4, and in October I read 5. For the star ratings, I gave 3 stars to 4 books, 3.5 to 5 books, 4 stars to 17, 4.5 stars to 6, and finally 5 stars to 8 books. So overall, a very good reading year, and one thing that I want to change is that I have to be a little more critical towards my ratings. So let's see how it goes in 2026. And now that we have all the statistics, I'm going back and fix my mistakes in the Book of the Year spreads and change the titles to the correct books, because I just want to be able to one day go back and see my favorite books, even if they didn't get to the top 9. And with that, it's finally time for the final flip through. If you enjoyed this video, give a like, subscribe and comment down below any heart emoji to let me know you watched it till the end. Also, next week I'm going to upload the flip through of both 2025 reading journals, so if you are interested in seeing that, make sure to subscribe. It was a very enjoyable reading month for me, a very chaotic one for my personal life, but very enjoyable in the books. I'm really liking the Legacy of God series. It started a little rocky, the first 2 were not my favorite, but after God of Wrath it was uphill and I'm loving it. I'm really excited to read some of the books in my TBR, I'm excited for the 2026 releases, and I'm even more excited to finally do some book reviews in my new journal in January. I think I speak for all of us when I say that the holiday season is just a chaotic mess, a very fun one but kinda stressful, but we made it through and I'm ready to start the new year. I will try more fantasy books, and I actually received one in Christmas, which I didn't ask for, so I took that as a sign from the universe to read more fantasy in 2026. Of course, my dark romance is still going to be very much present because I'm not trading that for anything, but I might dip my toe into a few more genres. Who knows? I hope you have a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!